Fringilla Vigo, niece to Artorius Vigo, was one of the only Nilfgaardian sorceresses who dressed nicely and used makeup and hair products because she was directly related to the Duchess of Toussaint, and as such, not subject to Nilfgaard's strange assumptions in terms of how sorceresses should look, especially since a good deal of her time was also spent in Toussaint. Still, Fringilla was always seen as an oddball and a rebel for doing so whenever she was present at the Nilfgaardian court. Life passes uneventfully for Fringilla until one day, Asira Anahid, a fellow Nilfgaardian sorceress, asks her to visit, with the intention to invite Fringilla to the Lodge of Sorceresses. Of specific interest to Asira, and the lodge in general, of course, was Ciri, and with this, Fringilla could help. Fringilla had also been among the mages summoned by Emir years ago to attempt to find the girl, failing, of course. But when the false Ciri is brought to Nilfgaard a few years after the fact, Fringilla had the presence of mind to test if it was truly Ciri. So, she took the lock of hair that Emir had given them when attempting to find Ciri, and compared it to a lock of hair from the Ciri currently in Nilfgaard, realizing that it was not the real Ciri. This cements Asira's decision to invite Fringilla to their next lodge meeting. "You once told me, and I remember it," she said, without turning around, "that no border should ever divide magic, that magic should have the highest values, be above all divisions, that what was needed was some kind of secret organization, something like a convent or a lodge." "I am ready," said Fringilla Vigo, Nilfgaardian sorceress, breaking the short silence. "My mind is made up, and I am ready. Thank you for your trust and the distinction. When and where will this lodge meet, my mysterious and enigmatic friend?" When she left to meet the lodge for the first time, Fringilla was anxious and stressed. She had previously reprimanded Nilfgaardian mages for yielding to stereotypical opinions and notions about northern mages. Artificially beautiful, arrogant, vain, and spoiled to the limits of perversion and often beyond them. But right now, all those stereotypes spooked through her head. She started imagining a group of beautiful women, mostly naked and on various narcotics, the lodge soon becoming a weird orgy of some sort. To her relief, however, there were no naked people dancing on the table, and the sorceresses were quite pleasant company. Eventually, Yennefer also arrives in the company of the two elven sorceresses, and when she is introduced to Fringilla, Yennefer notes that they already met before. Both Yennefer and Fringilla had fought during the battle at Sodden Hill, on opposite sides, of course. Fringilla was the one who had blinded Yennefer during that battle, and Yennefer was the one who had ripped one of Fringilla's friends to shreds in front of her eyes. But their angry glares are interrupted by the rest of the lodge, who intends to discuss the role of magic without borders. However, when the discussion eventually changed to the war with Nilfgaard, Fringilla realized that, despite the lodge's supposed neutrality, they still didn't seem happy with Nilfgaard at their doorstep. Fringilla had assumed that such educated people would understand that the Empire was bringing culture, prosperity, order, and political stability to the north. But then again, she wasn't so sure she'd not react the same as them in their shoes. When the discussion changes, yet again, this time to Ciri, Fringilla is caught unawares somewhat, as she knew nothing of the girl's strange powers and prophecy. Although she has her suspicions, it might have something to do with the lock of hair and the girl now pretending to be Ciri in Nilfgaard. Fringilla also knew very little about witchers, except that they kill monsters. And as Fringilla thinks more and more on the various topics discussed, she realizes that the Nilfgaardian sorceresses truly are kept in the dark more often than not, just in general. They were like errand girls to the Emperor. They know what they are being sent to do, but not why. Next, she is surprised to hear about a Falca, who she also knew nothing about, and while she's still recovering from all this confusion, Sabrina Glavisic accuses both Nilfgaardian sorceresses of being responsible for not only informing Emir of the elder blood held by Ciri, but also for tracking her down for Nilfgaard's sake, something Fringilla takes issue with because it wasn't true, of course. In fact, Asira and Fringilla inform the lodge that they have already tested the false Ciri's hair and concluded that it was not the real Ciri. In the break that follows their lengthy discussion, Fringilla attempts to strike up a conversation with Yennefer. Fringilla was quite aware that Yennefer was plotting an escape, and so they cryptically go back and forth in their talks until Fringilla hints at a way for Yennefer to teleport out of there, even through the magical barriers erected by the lodge. And so, she does. Asida knows Fringilla helped her somehow, of course, but the rest of the lodge had no idea, especially as they thought Yennefer and Fringilla despised each other. Instead, they gave her a task. She was to go to Toussaint, and there, when Geralt arrived, keep the Witcher busy as long as possible, so he couldn't interrupt their search for Ciri. And so, when Geralt does arrive in Toussaint, he is immediately requested to take part in a ceremony as something of a handler for Fringilla. It involved Geralt carrying an almost naked Fringilla into a vat of grapes, where Fringilla, along with the Duchess of Toussaint, would stamp on the grapes as was tradition, until wine happened. And yes, Fringilla immediately turned on her flirting for the Witcher, intending to seduce him as quickly as possible. During the following banquet, Geralt was seated next to Fringilla, of course. Geralt figured out that she was a sorceress quite fast. To her surprise, he could sense the aura. It caused Geralt to distrust her somewhat, which wounded Fringilla's pride. And Geralt is even more annoyed when she reads his thoughts about wanting to leave as early as possible. But Fringilla assures him that there is no need to leave. He's perfectly safe here, because everyone in Nilfgaard thinks he's dead, and she could help him find more information about Ciri while he stayed. Finally convinced, Fringilla takes Geralt to the library to look for any hints regarding Ciri. Except they do very little studying, and a lot of, bodily exploration regarding each other, shall we say. And they would continue said bodily exploration for a good long while over multiple days while Geralt's companions got annoyed at how long they were sticking around. Fringilla was performing her task admirably, although unfortunately for her, she was a rebound. In a single week, Geralt had called her Yennefer twice during their bodily exploration missions. Geralt wasn't as completely in her grip as she would like the lodge to believe, and Geralt's friends started to become a problem too. Fringilla has a rather angry back and forth with the team at one point when they insinuate that Geralt might be leaving soon. She spouts off about all the things she'd done for Geralt, making sure his knee is fully healed without any lingering pain, back to the way it was before Vilgefortz broke it, finding information on Ciri's lineage, hiding him from magical scanning, crafting a makeshift replacement for his Witcher medallion, and so on. So really, she was of the opinion that he should never leave. Of course, Geralt does leave. Quite soon after this conversation takes place, in fact. Geralt tried to leave stealthily, leaving Fringilla a letter, but she wouldn't have it. Not that their farewell conversation went well. "I'll never forget you." "Oh," she hissed. "You don't know how much I feel like making sure you really won't. Even if not using magic, then using a whip." "You won't do it." "You're right. I won't. I wouldn't be able to. I shall behave as befits a scorned and spurned lover. Classically, I shall walk away with my head high, with dignity and pride, swallowing back the tears, and then I'll howl into a pillow, and then I'll bet another." By the end, she was almost screaming. He said nothing. Neither did she. She begged him to stay, telling him she thought she loved him. Geralt refused, and so, instead, she asked him if he knew where Vilgefortz was hiding. She even tried to trade the information out of him, which earned her a snide comment from Geralt. Not wanting to get on his bad side, she told him regardless. That Yennefer never betrayed them, that she took a great risk to find Ciri but suffered defeat. So Geralt says an "I love you" back, in his own way, whatever that means, and is about to tell her where Vilgefortz's hideout is when Fringilla interrupts him, because she wishes to take part in bodily exploration one last time before he tells her. When he eventually does tell her, he lies. When she told the sorceresses of the lodge what Geralt had told her, Ristrun Castle, they were all very proud of her, right up to the moment where they attacked the castle and realized it was completely empty. She took the next 3 months to create a cream that prevented anyone from seeing how much she was blushing. Although, at least the medallion she gave Geralt helped in defeating Vilgefortz, so it wasn't entirely lost time. Not to mention, she votes for Ciri to leave to meet Geralt when the lodge votes to decide such. Unfortunately, during The Witcher 2, when Nilfgaard learns of the lodge, she is captured and chained. Likely because of her relation to the Duchess of Toussaint, she wasn't immediately executed. This allowed Geralt to free her during the events of The Witcher 3, after which she helps the other sorceresses to activate the trap that would lure in the Wild Hunt. What happens to her after that is unknown. but in her shoes, I'd lay low in Toussaint for a good long time.
I'm sure you're not surprised, but we're not doing skits at the end cards today either. I am so sorry. My Patreons are getting titles today. I hope you appreciate those too. Walguy the Illustrious, Robertson the Enlightened, Lochmoine the Fierce, MJ Coolsta the Impressive, Septic the Catist, Mike Zweers the Unrelenting, Adrian Packle the Impeccable, Ray the Fortuitous, Freeman the Wise,